Do you know what? I'm already liking this and I haven't shot it yet. Hello and welcome to the GunLocker, and welcome to part 1 of this 2-part review. Now part 1 deals with design and build, part 2 deals with performance. In front of me I've got Gamo's Roadster 10X GEN2. It's quite a mouthful there. It is a multi-shot, break barrel, gas ram, air rifle with a synthetic thumbhole stock and BSA's barrel fixed to it. The barrel is shrouded and it incorporates Gamo's Whisper Fusion sound moderator. And guys, you can see me looking down. I'm going to do my apologies now. I've got my cheat sheets here. I've got a lot of stuff to go through and I don't want to miss anything out. So yeah, bear with me. So going back to the rifle, it's available in 2 calibers, .177 and .22. Again, there's not a lot of options here. You can't swap out the barrels, you can't change the liners. It is a break barrel, it is what it is. It only comes in the black synthetic, so unfortunately in this format there's no wood option or no laminate. And what can I say? Its overall length is 1,185 millimeters long, or 46.7 inches. In fact, it's so long that I'm kind of struggling to get it in view. However, that's not a bad thing because its balance is lovely. The barrel length is 390 millimeters, or 15.4 inches, and as I say, it is BSA's barrel, so I'm expecting good things from this. The shroud length itself is 420 millimeters, or 16.5 inches, and the shroud diameter is 37 millimeters, or 1.5 inches in diameter. Okay, so like I've said, it incorporates the Whisper Fusion sound moderator. I don't know how that's made up because I've not been able to get into it. It's like a fixed unit. And that's one thing that maybe, Gamo could possibly give us the option, but this is what they provide. And again, this is a budget air rifle, okay, so I can't expect too much of them. Now, if I just look at my notes here, the reach from the butt to the trigger is 380 millimeters, or 15 inches, and the center of balance from the butt is 495 millimeters, so it's about 4.5 inches in front of the trigger. Okay, so 495 millimeters, or 19.5 inches for you guys that still like Imperial. Now, the fact that it's not a PCP keeps it very simple. We don't have a bottle or a cylinder, so we don't have to worry about maximum bar pressures or PSI pressures or recommended pressures. And the one thing actually to do with that always worries me a little bit is that with PCPs it's okay to pull the trigger once the rifle's been cocked if there's no pellet in there. Now that's not something that you would generally do with a Springer, because that spring, when you release the trigger, needs some resistance to prevent it from damaging the cylinder. The piston, when it flies forward, if there's nothing to kind of just cushion that blow for it, it can hit the front end of the cylinder and it can blow it apart. So you tend not to dry fire Springers or spring piston air rifles. Now this isn't that, this is a gas ram, and apparently Gamo whilst developing this rifle, have put 10,000 dry fire shots through it. And after 10,000 dry fire test shots, they found that it's not damaged the mechanism in any way. So they are saying it is safe to dry fire this rifle, which is great. It's fantastic. Obviously it's not a toy and it's not something that you want to do all the time, but it does help if you're trying to check its sound levels. Now let me crack on. So yeah, it's not a PCP, so I haven't got a carbon bottle option, there's no plenum to worry about, it's not regulated, there's no adjustable hammer spring on this, there's no transfer port to worry about. So all of that makes it a very simplistic rifle, and that kind of lends to the possibility of it being a lot more reliable. Less to go wrong. I like that. I like that a lot. Now, its weight, it comes in at 3.1 kilograms or 6.83 pounds with the scope fitted. Okay, and it retails in the UK, if it was new, at roughly 269, 270 pounds, depending where you are in the UK. And used, well, this one is, but it's in mint condition. This one's coming in, as you see it here, with a gun bag, with some pellets. There's actually 2 tubes here, with 2 magazines and some targets. It retails in at £250. Now that's incredible. You know, in my mind, I don't have to worry about buying a cylinder. I don't have to worry about a compressor or a pump. I can just literally take this out of the dealership, go into a field, provided I've got permissions, and shoot it. It's fantastic. And it's £250. Amazing. So let me crack on. Like I say, with the packaging, actually this rifle comes in, you know, a nice padded bag, and along with it, now it doesn't have an instruction manual, but if you go onto Gamo's website you can download their manuals, and they are quite lengthy and quite involved. I suppose it's just a way of saving on paper. What else does it come with? So as I say, it comes with 2 rotary magazines, it comes with some targets, there's 10 of them there. It comes with Gamo's 3 to 9x40 scope. It's not fancy, you know, there's no real adjustment to it, except, what can I say, it's just got actually quite nice clear glass, and it seems to be in focus, you know, wherever you're pointing at it, which is really quite simple but effective. Yep, and it's got, as a sound moderator, it's built in, the integral whisper fusion. So if you look at Gamo's website and you look at their tech spec, it's a little bit difficult to work out exactly how they achieved their figures, because when they did their tests they've not actually mentioned what weight of pellet they're using, and again, like all manufacturers, they don't really cater for the sub 12 foot-pound market with regards to their test sheets. It's all full power. So looking on their website, the only figures I could find was that the rifle was kicking out 24 joules or 17.7 foot-pounds, and I don't know whether that's in 0.177 or 0.22 because there's no difference in the figures. Now if it's 0.22, I'm guessing that you're looking at 879, 880 feet per second, or 268 meters per second. If it's in 0.177, you're looking at 1,266 feet per second, or 386 meters per second. It really is a little bit sketchy when you're looking at their website as to, you know, what figures this actually pushes out at full power. I've not shot a full power version of it, so I couldn't tell. However, this is the .22. I have put it over a Crony, and it came out with speeds of 593 feet per second, and that's using 14.5 grain RWS pellets. When I put pellets over a Crony, because I'm not bothered about accuracy, I'm just going to use the cheapest pellet that I can find. I see no point to using very expensive pellets. Yeah, but at 14.5 grains, I was getting 593 feet, and that equates to 11.31 foot-pound of energy out of this rifle. Obviously, if you go for a slightly heavier pellet, that foot-pound of energy is going to go up a bit, so just be mindful of that. But at 11.31 foot-pound, or 15.33 joules of energy, you know, that's more than ample to take out small game, you know, pest control. It's actually a very, very nicely set energy level, you know, output energy level. It's very usable. So yeah, I'm as I say, the figures are stacking up in its favour, and I'm already liking this before I've shot it. I just really hope I'm not going to be, you know, too disappointed when it comes to the target work, but we'll find out soon enough. So before I finish off the facts and figures, I just wanted to go over a little bit of history with regards to Gamo, the company, when it started and where it is now. It's claiming, and I say it, this is Gamo's website, it's claiming to be the largest airgun manufacturer in Europe. And it was established back in the 1880s when the company was originally known as Antonio Casas, or Casas. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, my apologies if I got it wrong. And it started out by making a variety of lead products in Barcelona. Now in 1950 they started to specialise in high quality airgun pellets for the European market. As they expanded, they went on to form a new company, and that was called Industrias El Gamo, and began making high quality performance air guns. So in 1961 the first of their air guns were introduced to the Spanish market. Now within 2 years they then started to export those guns to the rest of the European countries. Gamo's website goes on to state that today Gamo is the largest airgun manufacturer in Europe. Now they boast a distribution network that reaches out to 50 countries across the globe. What I like about this story, as opposed to, you know, I've mentioned this with the Reximex, is that unlike Reximex, Gamo have been around a long time, you know, and they've had that chance to bed themselves in, and I think it shows in the quality of the product. You know, yes, they're distributing to over 50 countries, but it's not happened in the space of just a handful of years. This is over decades, and that, in my mind, you know, is good, steady progress. You know, I'm hoping and I'm assuming that they took the time to develop their products before they branched out, you know, covering a global market. Yeah, it just feels better to me than maybe the likes of, you know, dare I say it, Reximex, that have only been around, you know, for a very short period of time and are already kind of distributing to over 60 countries. Now, back in the 80s, Gamo started to collaborate with the likes of BSA in the UK and other manufacturers in the USA, in Germany, in Brazil, and it continues to expand. So, you know, all I can say is good luck to them. The one thing that I will mention about Gamo whilst I'm on the subject is I personally have very little experience of using their pellets. And it's not, for me, it's not a go-to pellet. It's not something that I grew up with. And even now when I go and, you know, I go to the dealership and I ask for Air Arms, Diablo Fields, or, you know, Bisley Long Range Golds, Gamo doesn't spring to mind. And that for me is a bit of a surprise when I read that, you know, Gamo is saying that they're basically the world's largest pellet manufacturer. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what's happened there. I did ask the question with one dealership as to, you know, why don't they really stock Gamo pellets, and their opinion wasn't very favourable. So I don't know, maybe there's some room for improvement on that, you know, on that side of things for Gamo. But anyway, I digress. Enough about pellets, let's get back to this rifle. And let's start talking about 5-star rating. So you'll note that overall for the design and build, I've rated this rifle at 3.5 out of 5 stars. And for a budget PCP coming in at £250, that's a phenomenal score. And the only reason why it's not higher than that is, and I'll come to it shortly, but it comes down to this here. That actually, the fact that it's located within the trigger guard, so close to the trigger, even though it functions okay, but because it's so close to the trigger, I personally do not like that type of safety mechanism. Yeah. So let me go through the 5-star ratings, the different categories that I've got. I'll start off with aesthetics, because that's the easiest one to start with, and it begins with the letter A. Now, aesthetics. I've said this before, it's a very personal opinion. It's my opinion, it's what I feel about the rifle. And I've got to say, I like it. You know, it's not got the fancy wood. It hasn't got a kind of a blend of materials. It's all like a matte black finish, but that works in its favour. For me, there's not a lot to fall out with. I like the design. I thought at first when I saw it, I thought the barrel appeared heavy, you know, gave that appearance of being maybe too bulbous towards the end. But actually, you know what? It's grown on me. I really haven't, you know, I've not come across anything on this rifle that I really don't like, or that I find unpleasant. It's just nice. So I've rated it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Now you may be different. You may think that actually I don't like this. Please drop us a comment. You know, it's there for you to do that. But personally, yeah, I like it. So 3.5 out of 5 stars. Now, ergonomics, my favourite subject, ergonomics. So I've rated the rifle 3.2 out of 5 stars. That may seem a bit low for some of you, but the reason being, like I keep saying, with regards to ergonomics, it's about how the product has been designed to suit the end user and how adaptable it is for the end user. Now, although Gamo have done a great job in balancing the rifle, and you know, I've got to say, it fits in the shoulder really nicely. It's ever so comfortable. You know, it's nice. It's pointable. It works. It's not heavy. And I have to say that the end result is good. It is good. But where it kind of loses marks is the fact that, you know, if I talk about the stock, yes, it's got an ambidextrous butt, but it hasn't got an adjustable butt pad which goes up and down. It hasn't got an adjustable pad that goes in and out. It does have these removable, sorry, I'll try and get a bit closer here. It does have these removable rubber inserts in the butt pad, which means that becomes softer. So that goes in its favour. I'll see if I can get that back in again. Yeah, that's gone in nicely. But you know, it doesn't have an adjustable cheek piece that goes up and down, you know, so really there's not a lot that you can kind of do with the gun itself. It doesn't even come with a set of studs for a shoulder strap, you know, and one of the reasons is that obviously it's a break barrel, and that causes a bit of a problem as to where you're going to actually fit the studs. But that's, you know, that aside, it does have, like I say, that adjustable butt pad in that you can make it softer. It does have an ambidextrous cheek piece and an ambidextrous grip. What else does it have? There's the integral forend, which a lot of PCBs nowadays don't seem to have. And of course the stock is robust and it is weather resistant. You know, it really will take a knock. So that's all in its favour. With regards to the metalwork, again, there's not a lot of adaptability to it, unfortunately. And this is where the rifle kind of loses points with ergonomics, because you can't do much more to it to what you've already got here. So it's not available in alternative colours. It, you know, it does have an easy reach cocking lever, and yes, that's ambidextrous because both lefties and righties can use it. That's not a problem at all. It does have an adjustable two-stage trigger. It's BSA's cat trigger, but it doesn't have a post and blade match trigger. You know, what else doesn't it have? It's not regulated. Obviously you haven't got a plenum and all that sort of stuff that goes along with it. There's no adjustable hammer spring, no adjustable transfer port. So where the PCPs have more adjustability to them, unfortunately this, along with traditional style rifles or air rifles, tends to fall foul. What else? So yes, it does have a scope rail that's fitted to the top, and it's an 11mm dovetail rail. It does, now I say it does. So I've looked at Gamo's website recently, and it looks like they've, although they're still calling it the Gen 2, they've made some adaptations to their rifle that they've got listed. And as I say, this isn't brand new. It is used but in mint condition. And on the rifles that they list within their online catalogue, they're actually showing open sights that have been fitted to the muzzle and also to the breech. So that kind of gets rid of the fact or the need to provide some sort of sighting mechanism. And I don't know with their new models whether they actually include a scope, because they've now got open sights. Again, I'm not sure. I'd have to check that out. If anybody knows, please drop us a comment. I'd love to hear from you. So I'm grading it as if it's got open sights, because I know that you can get new ones now with open sights, if that makes sense. It does have a shrouded barrel, and it does accommodate an integral sound moderator. So that's basically it with regards to ergonomics. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but it's only on my score sheet, it's only coming out with a score of 12 out of 40, which, you know, really isn't that great. But it's no fault of the rifle, and it doesn't actually impact on its performance in my mind. The way it shoulders, I have to say this, the way it shoulders, I'll get this out of the way, it's absolutely lovely. It's not heavy, you can hold it still, you can hold it like this for a long time. I think Gamo have done a good job with this, I really do. And with regards to how it shoulders and how it fits me, again, what am I? So I keep saying this, I'm 14.5 stone, I'm 6 foot tall. You know, I've got a reasonable reach with my arms. This rifle fits me very well. I've actually scored it 4.5 out of 5 stars for the way that it fits me, and that helps with you know, the ergonomic score. So yeah, where it loses on one hand, it actually does gain in fit. 3.2 out of 5 stars. Now, let me crack on. Alright, so build quality. With regards to the action, or the chassis, the main body of the rifle, I've basically been quite, not rough with it, but the one thing that you tend to get with brake barrels after a period of time is they do loosen up, and where the barrel slots back into the breech, you can get movement, you can get play. If you get play, then that's going to affect the accuracy, and this really does feel very snug, very tight, and I couldn't find any sideward movement on it. Always worries me with brake barrels, because if you note the scope is on the cylinder is obviously fixed to the stock. It's the main body of the rifle, okay, and because the barrel itself is hinged at this point, any movement at this hinge point can actually affect the accuracy, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So it always worries me when it comes to shooting a brake barrel as to how tight and how snug that fit is between the barrel and the breech. Now if there's no movement, if there's no play, either sideward or up and down as it locks off, then it should be fine. But it's one of the reasons why you look at the older brake barrels, and you'll see that if they've got open sights, they tended to be on the muzzle and at the breech of the barrel. You didn't have them set at the back, and you wouldn't get that with a brake barrel. If you've got something like the HW77K, yeah, I've got one here. So obviously you've got the open sight at the muzzle, and then you do have an adjustable rear sight which slides on and off, and that's fitted here, but it's a solid unit. You know, the barrel is fixed, there's no movement between them, so you can have the sight closer to your eye, the rear sight closer to your eye. Put that one back. So yeah, with regards to the action and the chassis, well, I've got nothing really to fall out with. I've given it a score of 4 out of 5, which is very, very good. I'm going to trust the Gamo's statement of the 10,000 dry fire test shots, meaning that, you know, it is safe to dry fire this, is testimony to how good a build quality we've actually got within the cylinder, within the mechanism itself. Yeah, I can't really fault it. And again, that kind of leads on to the air system then. So it's gas ram, you can dry fire it, it has been robustly tested, vigorously tested should I say, and again I've got nothing to fall out with, so I've scored it 4 out of 5. Yes, it's not a PCP, so it doesn't have a cylinder, which means you've got all that usable air which you can just basically go click, 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 click. You do have to cock this rifle, and it takes some effort to do that, you know. I'm not going to cock it all the way, I don't need to, but it does take a little bit of effort, and I think a slighter individual, so a smaller individual, may get tired of doing that after a while. It's good exercise, but it does take a little bit of effort to do that. And with regards to actually cocking the rifle, what I've found is that, I don't know if you can see this distance, so where it fits your hand, where the actual thumb wraps around the pistol grip, it's actually quite narrow, and it's almost sharp on this edge here. I'll talk about this a little bit more with regards to the stock. But the problem is, when you've got your hand here and you go to cock the rifle, it's putting some pressure because you're working against the spring, on the crease between your thumb and your hand. And I reckon after a while, if you do a lot of this, you may well end up with some blisters. Certainly, I mean, I've got ex-builder's hands here, so it doesn't really bother me, but I can imagine with other people that aren't used to that sort of physical labour, their hands may suffer after a while. What else can I say? So, yeah, 4 out of 5 for the air system. The barrel, well, it's BSA's barrel. I'm expecting good things from this barrel. At the moment, you know, we all know that BSA barrels are of good quality. So there is nothing for me to fall out with. However, and I'm going to throw this in now, although I scored the barrel 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm almost scoring that blind, it's very difficult to look down these because of this whole loading mechanism, and I didn't want to take this off to be able to have a proper look down the barrel. You can do it, by the way, there are instructions in Gamo's manual in order to be able to do that. But what I did do was shine a light down, and I can see some eccentric rings towards the muzzle end, so where the barrel finishes and the sound moderator comes into play, and I'll show you an image that will pop up onto the screen now, you'll be able to see that there are some slight eccentricities in the circles that you see going down the barrel. Now, provided there's enough clearance between those, you know, the baffles of the moderator and the pellet itself, it shouldn't be an issue, although eccentric rings can have an effect on air stability behind the pellet, because what you want to do is have a nice even plug of air behind the pellet, not where it's escaping because, you know, one of the rings is pushed out to one side or another. So that I'll have to see with the accuracy test, and as I say, I've not shot the rifle yet, so time will tell. Okay, so let's talk about the safety. Now, I've scored the rifle 2.5 out of 5 stars, and it's the lowest rating that I've given the rifle so far. The reason for it is that you guys, if you've seen my previous videos, you'll know that I do not like having a safety mechanism within the trigger guard. I think safeties should be well away from the trigger. The reason for this is that when it's on, okay, you can see it here, that forward trigger blade there, which is the safety mechanism, when it's engaged, it's very close to the trigger. Now, I'm going to try and show you this. To disengage it, you literally have to put, or use the tip of your finger to push it forward, okay? And then you've got enough room to get your finger into the trigger. But there is a chance of when you push that trigger blade forward, sorry, that safety blade forward, that you engage the trigger at the same time. And on colder days when you're wearing gloves, if those gloves are a little bit thicker, if they're neoprene for instance, you know, you won't be so sensitive to that trigger blade, and you may just engage it and fire it inadvertently. Now I know that the trigger, sorry, the safety should only be disengaged when you're actually pointing at the target and it's ready to go, but accidents do happen. And likewise, there is a risk that when you engage that safety, that you pull against the trigger, or you slip off the safety and pull against the trigger accidentally. Now, one thing that I will say is the design of this safety blade is nicely hooked. So, sorry, I went for the trigger there by accident. Anyway, let me move that around again. It's nicely hooked so that it catches your finger quite well. Hard to do it from this angle, sorry. You know, you do catch it, but again, I really do not like safety mechanisms within the trigger guard. The one other issue that I have with it is that if you actually look at Gamo's website and you look at their manual, now in their manual they insist that you engage the safety every time you cock the rifle prior to cocking it. So if they're telling you you've got to do it, and there's always a reason why a manufacturer will tell you that you've got to do it, as basically because somebody's got hurt as a result of that not being engaged. Why on earth can't the manufacturer just simply, you know, have a push rod from the cocking mechanism that will engage an automatic safety, and then when you're ready to fire you can just disengage that safety and pull the trigger? In my mind, it's something that a manufacturer can do, especially when they've got the ability to design this wizardry here of a loading mechanism. You know, surely they can design an auto safety for this gun. And again, don't forget, it's a budget rifle, so when we're talking about budget, we're talking about possibly newbies coming into the scene, guys that aren't experienced shots, you know, carrying rifles around, those people that love, for whatever reason, to walk around with a rifle in their hand and have their finger on the trigger. Now, I refer back to an instant when I went down to my local range, and there was an elderly gentleman there on the range, and he had, if I remember rightly, a BSA, no, I forget which one it was, but that was a break barrel. And he just had this habit of wanting to show everybody the rifle, but as he did it, his finger was on that trigger. Now, I told him on 3 occasions not to do that, not to wave the gun around with his finger on the trigger. And at one point he actually did discharge accidentally, and it was everything that I'd had to basically not, you know, give him a proper peace of my mind. But individuals do this, you know, they pick up rifles, they don't understand how dangerous they are until something happens, you know, then it's too late. So please, manufacturers, take your safety mechanisms out from within the trigger guard. Take it away from the trigger and make it easily accessible where there's no chance of an accidental discharge. And, you know, in my mind, an auto safety is the best way forward. Absolutely, 100%. So I hate to say it, Gamo, because I do have a growing fondness for this rifle. I'm going to knock you down, and I'm going to give you 2.5 out of 5 stars for your safety. Right, that's my sermon over with. And let's talk about the stock. So the stock, I've given 3.5, sorry, not 3.5, wishful thinking, I've given 3 out of 5 stars. And that's because it does have issues. And those issues are the sharp edges on the moulding. Now, you know, synthetic, plastic, but it has a seam. And in places, that seam is really quite sharp. Now, if you were a joiner or a carpenter and you were checking your chisel blades, you tend to run them not along the blade edge, because that's how you cut yourself, but across the blade edge. And if that can lift your fingerprint, then you know it's quite sharp. And a lot of these edges here on this rifle are actually quite sharp. You know, a little bit of finishing, a little bit more finesse within the moulding process would have got rid of these sharp edges. And there's also, I found that just here underneath my fingers, there are some sharp points there as well. So when it rests in your hand, you can actually feel them. They're almost digging in. Now, those of you out there that say, yes, but you can get some wet and dry paper or some emery paper and you can rub that down, you can sand it down, you can make it nice and smooth. I agree with you, yes, you can do that. However, as soon as you start to put some emery paper, some wet and dry paper, sandpaper, whatever you want to call it, an abrasive against this plastic or synthetic stock, you are going to take away the finish that's near that seam, and you will see a rub mark wherever you do it. So in my mind, that's something that maybe a little bit more finesse, you know, would pay dividends with regards to the stock. So it's a good stock, it's weather resistant, it's robust, it does have its issues, and because of that I've given it 3 out of 5 stars. Lastly, Sundries, the final category on the design and build. Well, in all honesty, all I've got to talk about are these little magazines, these rotary mags, 10 shots in 2.2. I haven't had any issues with the few that I've loaded so far, and that was for the Crony test, but I'll give these more of a test when I take the rifle outside, so I'll talk to you more about that then. And also the bag itself is functional, it's nice, it's padded, a lovely sundry item. And again, you know, with regards to the scope, well, what can I say? It does the job. You know, it doesn't have the adjustable objective lens. It doesn't have the you know, the parallax adjustment. But in all honesty, it doesn't really need it. It's just a very simple 3 to 9x40 scope. The glass is clear. It's nice that it's in focus wherever you point it, and it does the job. You know, when I first started shooting 40 odd years ago, I had a Nikon on my rifle at that time, and it wasn't anywhere near as good as this. But I remember shooting the heads off of those little plastic soldiers at 25 meters away with it, so it can be done, and this is a better scope. So yeah, I've rated the rifle 4 out of 5 stars for its sundries, and I think it's well deserved. I really do. So you know what, Gamo, with regards to design and build of this Roadster 10X Gen2, you've done well. You really have done well. And the fact, I'll say it again, you can buy this rifle for £250 all in. That's stunning. It's absolutely brilliant. So well done. Now guys, that's the end of part 1. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please hit that like button, and also if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. It's going to help the channel, it will help me to continue to produce these videos. Yeah, and of course share it amongst friends and family, spread the word, let them know about the GunLocker. And with regards to the GunLocker, if you do have any rifles that you want to sell, or if you're looking to buy some, you know, air guns or shooting accessories, please pop over to the website www.thegunlocker.uk and have a look. You know, there's plenty of stuff being added on there on a daily basis. So once again guys, thank you very much, and hopefully I'll see you at part 2.